This conference will now be recorded.
All right, thanks everyone for coming tonight. I didn't know how many we'd have in person versus how many would be, going remotely. So I'm glad there's a lot more that can always be accomplished when you show up. So thanks for coming out, especially during these times. Appreciate that. For those of you who don't know me, and I see a few familiar faces in the audience, my name is Rex Melberg, and I'm the Director of Parks, Recreation, and Forestry for the Village of Ashwaubenon. We also have Aaron Schutte in the back. Aaron's our Community Development Director. Mary Kardosky, who's our Village President, and Allison Williams, who is your trustee. And I'm assuming everyone here is living there on Broadway or close to it. So Allison would be your trustee. Online, I'm not sure all who we have online, except I do know that Patrick Skalecki is online. Patrick is from Grafe Engineering and Consulting. He's worked with us at the village on many projects in the past, and they have been tapped to work with us on the extension of the Ashwaubomay River Trail, which is currently right now ending at Bay Harbor Condominium, but soon we'll be going around Alden Station. And then we're looking at, again, with the bridge and then pushing it through Ashwaubomay behind New Water Treatment Plant and then into the Brown County Fairgrounds. So it's a project that's been on the books for at least 15 or 20 years, and it's starting to finally come to fruition with some of the work that we're looking at here. So I think at this time, I'm going to let Pat take the floor. And how I'd like to do is just, he's got a little presentation to give on some of the plans and some similar pictures. And after the presentation's done, that's when we'll talk about any questions that you guys may have or concerns or comments, if that works for everybody. Patrick, are you there?
I am ready to go.
All right, you have the floor, sir.
Okay. Well, thank you, everybody, and hello virtually, I guess. I just wanted to acknowledge, I guess, one other person from Grafe is on the line. So I'm the principal in charge, also lead our office here in Green Bay. And then also on the line is Ryan Van Camp. He's our project manager out of our Green Bay office here, who's really leading the nuts and bolts of getting the design done, of which we're in a fairly early stage yet. Something we would characterize as design development stage. So really still pretty fluid. Some structure and clarity has been obviously obtained at this point, but there are some things that are still in flux as we work through design and permitting. And one of the reasons that we're here to talk to you is to get that feedback that is so valuable to us as designers and the village as well, so that we know that this structure is going to, as best we can, meet the needs of as many people as we can possibly do. So that's really the goal ultimately. What we want to do today is walk through the plans as they are. And again, they're in the development stage still. So they are progress plans, and then show some representative imagery of some of the features or some of the similar products that we've done of late of similar construction. Just bear with me a little bit. Some of these pictures do have aerial background, so they take a second or two to generate as I'm walking through them. But If you could just pause for a sec while they generate, and then I'll talk through them, and then we move on to the next thing. So, and again, if anything, Rex, if anything looks like it needs to be blown up or bigger, I'm going to try to make it as big as possible. Please let me know, and I'll try to zoom in more as we go through it.
Will do.
All right, so let's just start with some context. The agenda, hopefully that you all have a copy of, you can follow along, but this is how I'm going to follow. We'll talk about those items. Let's start with some context of where we are, which you probably all know, but it helps really everybody to kind of understand what's around it, where it is exactly, those features, those kind of things. And I'm already starting to move stuff around. I should be moving around. So needless to say, the bridge is on Ashwaubenon Creek, adjacent to Ashwaubomay Park here, and Alden Station here. What you're seeing, and my bubble moved around a little bit, is as I zoom out, Broadway to the west, here's the entry drive that goes into the park and the bridge. You can see the creek snaking around before it discharges into the Fox River, and then obviously the interior of Ashwaubomay Park here. What we want to show you here is just the context of where the bridge is, and my bubble moved a little bit, so bear with me a little bit. But this is basically the trail. That's a future trail that was studied a little bit. This is also a planned future extension of the trail. And really the bridge, and apologize for my bubble moving a little bit because this aerial background is a big image, but the bridge is basically right here where this red line is. So it's really right at the mouth of Ashwaubenon Creek, landing on the park side to the south, and then at this little point here, which is at the corner of the Alden Station development here, to the north of Ashwaubenon Creek. So from a contextual standpoint, the creek, the little landing, boat landing and parking, the driveway, and then, as I mentioned before, Broadway up on the top of the screen, which is the west side of the site. So that's context. So let's get into a little more detail next on the actual bridge itself, where it stands today. So again, these are development drawings, and basically what this is showing, effectively the alignment in a little more detail than what that last colored chart showed. Survey has been done, so you're seeing contoured survey lines that are at the, within Ashwaubenon Creek bottom, so it's the bottom of the creek, as well as some survey that we've done along the banks. The trail we've set in alignment, and then we're showing the bridge crossing here. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit. So as it generates, again, I'm going to pause a second so it can be seen on your end. So as I zoom in here, and again, there's some things that we're working out with the design, verifying pier spacings, the column supports basically of the bridge, how long those spans are, where the fishing bump out is going to be, looking at slopes and profiles still, but that's in process. But you can see the alignment of the bridge that comes across here. It's the straight section after the curve on the park side, and then you can see the landing up by Alden Station on the north side. So the bridge basically extends from this location here, just on the bank, to the bank on the opposite side. So as soon as we get on the bank, there will be abutments, and what you're seeing intermittently, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them, and those are pier supports, bridge piers that are going to be supported with piling, and then a concrete pier cap. And on top of that will be girders, and you'll see imagery of that as we get through this little presentation. But from a contextual standpoint within the site, fishing bump out currently in the middle, but that's one of the things we're still vetting, is where do we put that. And then the spans right now, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 spans along the whole bridge, roughly about 65 feet apiece. And you'll see that on the next sheet as I get into some more detail. So I'm going to move to the next sheet. As this generates, again, the background, just please hold for a sec, as this aerial photo background, just a big file, so it takes a second to read everything, if you will. There we go. All right, so this is, again, the landing. So this isn't really the bridge. This is kind of how we're looking at trying to connect into at least a paved area, as that future trail may happen down the line. But basically, you're seeing the road within Ashwaubomay Park, the trail system that we would be putting. Is somebody not muted? If you haven't Can you please mute if you're not speaking right now, just so I'm getting that background feedback? Thank you. Okay, so the trail coming through here, again, a 12-foot wide trail coming all the way up to the bridge abutment, and then the bridge is slightly wider at 14 feet. So you can see the contouring again around the bridge. I'm going to go to the next sheet, which is really the bridge sheet. Again, there will be a profile view on the bottom that shows the slopes of the center of the trail and the bridge itself. So again, as I zoom in here a little bit, you can see a little bit better of the building or the bridge outline. Still, again, you can see the contours. You can see the deep part of the channel at 573. You can see the bank at about 580, but there's pretty shallow areas as you get to the southerly portion, half of the bridge, a couple 2 to 3 feet deep generally, and then a little bit of a steeper drop off on this side. But basically, we're showing a fishing bump out in the middle, which again, we're trying to vet exactly where we put that. And then, as I indicated, piers at these locations currently about 65 feet spacing between those piers. So that's a 65-foot clear span in each of these locations. And then the landing on the north end near Alden Station, again, this is being looked at a little, it'll be a little different than this because of the sloping we need to do to get down and connect that trail going by, but this is obviously in development yet. Okay, so that's kind of the civil drawings, if you will, which shows layout, alignment, slopes ultimately, dimensions, location, those kind of things. So the next things I'm going to show are the structural drawings, and this will give you a better picture of what it's going to look like. So again, this is a rendered 3D Revit kind of snapshot. So we build these things in a model, and this is a snapshot out of that model. Again, as I had indicated before, really showing that we're going to be having piling supporting the piers, which the girders will sit on, and then span through those 5 different piers, and then the abutments at the end. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 spans again. So that's just a snapshot, structurally pretty technical, but, and then the one other sheet I want to show, and this is again a structural drawing. So again, you're seeing kind of an example of, you know, the bridge deck with the fishing bump out. As I noted before, you know, it's 14 feet wide. This is the spacing between the girders that you're seeing here, and some of the structural information. I think more importantly, just to give you an image, and I'll show you some photos of a bridge, and we've done probably in the last 6 or 7 years, I bet you we've done half a dozen bridges that are similar in this design. In other words, they have the piling, round pipe piling with a concrete pier cap. They have a girder, steel girder beam, and then they have decking, timber with composite surface. And then the railing is a combination of a cable railing with a top and bottom aluminum rail and wood posts. And that's what you're seeing kind of here is the piling, the pier caps, the girder, and then the decking and the railing that will be up on the bridge deck, obviously protecting people from falling in the water. Here's a little structural view. So if I cut a slice through it, if you're standing on the deck and I cut a slice through it, this is kind of what you're looking at with the deck here. The railings on the side, the girders, the diaphragm which connects the girders, and then you're seeing here the concrete pier cap with the piling that would be driven into the riverbed to support the structure. And then just a little snapshot here of the railing detail itself. I'll have some pictures so you can really see a 3D or a colored version of this, which will give you a lot more clarity, but basically top and bottom rail, the decking being here, wood posts, and then stainless steel cable railing or cabling in between to provide that OSHA required safety separation of gap that we need to meet. So that's our structural drawings. Again, pretty technical, but it gives you a little picture of it. And I think more importantly will be the next images I'm going to show. First off, I'm going to show you an image of the fishing bump out. And the fishing bump out is that center feature that's off of the main deck. Again, the 14-foot wide deck, and typically it's 12. So we're actually looking at a 2-foot wider deck to allow, if people fishing along the railing, that's still going to have room for 2-way traffic to pass, bike and ped traffic. But this gives us a little bit extra width for railbirds, we call them, and then also a fishing bump out or observation area that people can really get off that traveled way. So let me get to that imagery. That's not the one I wanted. There we go. Okay, so this is a rendering that we've done for a previous project, to be truthful, but it is the same design and it's the same size. So roughly speaking, this is a 8-foot by 24-foot platform that extends off of the main girder. So you can see we have steel girder framing around the base of it to support that. But otherwise, it's the same design. It's going to have a timber substructure with composite decking, the wood posts with the top and bottom aluminum rail, and then you can kind of see the cable railing in between. Lighting, this, for this client, that's what they wanted the lighting to look like, but we're working that out with Rex and his staff yet on what that's going to look like. Just a little bit, if you look down here on the right, you can see the piers with the round steel piling with the concrete pier cap, and then the girder is sitting on top of those. So this is just a representative image of what it would look like out on your bridge when it's ultimately completed. Okay, now I'm going to show a couple true real bridges that we've designed, and these are, if you're familiar with the Loop the Lake bridges in Neenah and Menasha, those are projects that we've designed, both of those bridges, and the Trestle Trail that goes across Little Butamore, that's another one of ours, and the Herbandali Bridge, which is Herbandali Smith Park, which is also part of the Loop the Lake. So there's 4 bridges on this loop, and this is the one, what we're looking at here is the actual Menasha one. So this is obviously you're standing on the deck right at the curve, but gives you a perspective. And again, this is the same width as the bridge we're looking at for Ashwaubenon, 14 feet wide. It's going to be the same general type of railing. Again, if I zoom in a little bit, you can see the cabling is really small. The reason we do that is for visibility, so we're not obstructing people looking out over the water. That's one of the needs and reasons people go out here, with the top and bottom rail to protect and timber spacing posts. Next photo is going to give you a kind of a perspective view. So this is the same bridge. And again, this is standing, the last photo I was taking was about right here looking towards this canopy. And again, this is their fishing bump out location. So they elected to put a shelter canopy over the top, but that's where their bump out, fishing bump out is right here on that downstream side of the river. But you can see again the railing, and again, you can see right at this distance, you can't even see the cabling. You can kind of see the piling. The water is a little high at this point. This is probably about 6 feet of clearance when you think about from our bottom of deck to the top of the bottom of the girder. The top of the deck is roughly about 4.5 to 5 feet, and this is about 6 feet to get down to here. So that's kind of what you're seeing in this image. People standing on here, you kind of see how someone might be about that same height standing on the water if they were down below it. But basically the pier cap, the piling, the girder, the decking, and the railing. Again, lighting still to be determined. So this is a true bridge, and you're welcome to go down and please look at them and use that trail as well, but very similar design for what we're looking at for the bridge at the Ashwaubomay Trail, River Trail Bridge. One of the last things I want to talk about before we open it up for questions, I know some of the concerns that we've heard is about that clearance. We can talk about that certainly, but obviously as an aid to that, there is, trying to bring that image up, a clearance marker that we would be looking at putting at this bridge. Probably seen them on other bridges, but basically what it is a feature that is put on the end of the piers. So this is actually on kind of a, if you've seen these where larger ships come in where they go underneath a bridge, this is kind of a funnel timber structure that funnels them into the crossing. But basically what it does is it gives you information on where the water level is and how much clearance is from, whatever structure you're going underneath. So as the water rises, obviously the numbers would decrease and your clearance would show as less. But something similar is what we've been talking about doing, and those would be at the nose of both piers on both sides of the bridge, at that center span location, to give whatever navigation aid the boaters would need to get underneath the bridge and confirm their clearance requirements. So that's one thing we are looking at doing and providing that feature. So generally speaking, we wanted to keep this presentation, I guess, clear and concise, and that's kind of where we're at right now. We've walked through all these features, and I'm more than happy to bring those back up as questions come in and there's specific things you want to talk about. Just to give a timeline understanding for everybody in the room and online, we are in the midst of design. Permitting is yet to come. There's grant funding still being shaking out. So as of right now, the plan is to start constructions, get through design really through the winter, look at bidding at sometime spring or early summer, and then start construction late summer, early fall. So really, that September, October timeframe, that works well typically with bidding, obviously, because would be constructed partially over the winter, which helps our bidding timeframe, and it also helps meet our DNR permit criteria, which limits some of the things we can do in the spring and early summer because of fish spawning and other things. They don't want us working in the water. So this start in the fall, getting all the water work done, working over the winter, and finishing all the decking and the above structure items in the spring, so we can open it before the summer, and then people can use it in the best time of the year. So that's our schedule. Again, Rex, I'm going to turn it back over to you. Open this thing up for Q&A, and I can bring up whatever drawings we want to talk about as we get through the question and answer process.
All right, thanks, Patrick. I'm going to head off some questions that I know are going to be asked right out of the gate, and I'm going to ask you right out of the gate, Patrick, what is the minimum DNR requirement for clearance on a bridge like this?
Okay, so there obviously are state codes that we need to follow with this, because this will be requiring a permit through the DNR. We've already submitted preliminary drawings to them, really just to get initial feedback. Obviously, we want to know early on if there's any concerns, and one of their comments, which was consistent with the statute, is that the navigational clearance above ordinary high water mark is a 5-foot vertical clearance above that elevation, and that's to our low steel. So that would be the lowest piece of feature, if you will, to navigation, and that's above ordinary high water mark. Now, ordinary high water mark is a somewhat fluctuating thing, but they'd usually make a determination, the DNR would make a determination, and it's typically where the bank is showing wear or erosion, if you will, because that's where the water elevation is normally at. And Ryan, if I'm saying that incorrectly or there's more detail, please jump in, but that's generally the approach that DNR takes about ordinary high water. So it's roughly where the normal water is under the most time of the year. And evidenced by certain features out on the site when they take a look at it. But 5 feet above that is the minimum that the DNR would require.
And that's the high water mark, which we're pretty much at right now.
Right.
Correct?
It's not. Yeah. It's ordinary high water isn't like the 100-year flood. It's not like a flood event high water. It's a normal, more normal high water elevation.
So. With this particular bridge in this setting, how high potentially could we make that bridge without impacting the project in and of itself?
Well, we've taken a look at a number of options to see what we can do, and obviously, we have an elevation. So if you think about it, as I mentioned previously, that if we need a 5-foot clearance and the structure girder, which they're usually around 30 inches deep or so based on the span length, and then you have the timber structure and the decking and everything, that's where I got the 4.5 to 5 feet of total section depth. You're going to be about 9 feet above the water elevation. Now you can see on these contours from the water, roughly around 581 or so, it's about 4 or 5 feet up to the ground. So the girders are coming in basically where the ground is. So we have about a 5-foot drop to make up on a slope on both approaches on both sides under this scenario of a 5-foot clear. The north end is really giving us more challenges that way as far as impacts, so we don't have any fill within the waterway, and that's really what we've been looking at as a criteria for the approaches. We don't want to fill anything in the waterway, and comfortably meeting an ADA slope along the profile of the bridge, following the route. We felt that at the center span, at least, we could get up to about a 7-foot of clearance without really impacting too much. It'll impact some, but trying to get down the slope and back to match grade on the north and south end, we felt that was doable without really adding a ton of cost to the project, both on the approaches as well as more piling, because you have more length in the piles to bring it up higher, more approach work. the abutments might need to move out. If we make it too high, we might lengthen the bridge, which is going to cause longer girders, in some cases, more decking and everything. And it felt like a good balancing point where we could get to 7 feet of clear.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Patrick. All right. That was my question right out of the gate, because I have a feeling that's what a lot of your questions are going to be too. So let's just open it up. David's got a microphone. If we can just do it on the microphone so Patrick can hear, because otherwise he won't be able to hear a question.
Hi, my name's Brett. I live on the creek here, and the proposed bridge here, just looking at it, the deepest part of this creek right now is even to the right of your cursor. That's not even, yeah, you got to go right, farther north. Pretty much where that second span is starting is where the deep part is.
There you go.
Right in there is where the deep part of the creek is. So any boat traffic, particularly myself, I'm hugging the shore there because that's the deep portion of the creek. And historically, when we were at the lower water levels about 6 years ago, all where your fish bump out, heading east from that, it's 2 feet deep in there. And just basically where the cursor is, it's about 4 feet deep. So there's a very small channel really where you can get a bigger boat through there. So that's, one of the concerns. The real concern is the height though. My boat is at least 9 feet of clearance I need. So, we got multiple boat owners along the creek here who will no longer have access to the river. So, that's our big concern. And then I don't know if this is a question for you or more of a question for the planners, is what is the cost of this bridge versus having the trail head to the west up to the sidewalk and then go for, the quarter mile from this, from Hanson to the entrance to the park, and then connect with the trail there's a rough trail that goes around the dirt trail that goes around the creek there, and building on it. It would seem to me it would be a much better use of funds to just use the sidewalk as opposed to building this bridge. And that's all I have for now.
Sure. Good points. So the bridge, the total project, we're probably looking at about 1.4 million for the bridge, for the whole thing. That includes the landings, the connection to the parking lot, the lighting, the electrical for the lighting, everything that would go along with it, as Patrick kind of showed in the picture. Regarding the cost, the source of those funds, we already have that money. It is a combination of TIF dollars through TIF 3 from the different TIF district buildings that have been built within that area can be used for this project, as well as some park development funding. Whenever a new home is built, a new business or like apartment complexes, each developer has to pay a certain dollar amount per unit. That goes into the park development fund for amenities for the people that are continually moving into the area, whether it be business people or residents. So for instance, park development funds were taken from the Marriott that was built. They'll be taken from the apartment Manso Flats that was built by 172. The new building that's going up right next to Manso Flats. Everything around there has contributed to park development and into TIF per se. So the funding is there. That's the good thing. And this project was kind of put in place, and a lot of these funding mechanisms were made decades ago in preparation for projects such as these. So whatever happens, however this trail develops, the money is already there for it, and it's not going to be increasing the tax rate at all, because it's already been paid for by the development that has already occurred, that we have in waiting for projects like this. I don't know if that helps at all.
I'm just thinking, that kind of money, the kind of money they're spending on the bridge, I would think would really be better presented for enhancing the park itself, adding some playground equipment, some basketball courts, et cetera, when it's, you're really, there's, yeah, it's a nice looking bridge and all that, but having the people, I don't think there's any less. It doesn't make that much better of a walkway than if you just bring the walkway out to the west of the sidewalk for the quarter mile, because it's literally less than a quarter mile to go to the entrance of the park and have it loop all the way around the park. I mean, it's still a trail. It still goes along the river. Just not having this added expense that I think is unnecessary. And you're really impacting huge those of us along the river here who have large boats and bought boats and have been using boats for decades. In the instance of Michael here and myself for almost 10 years, having a large boat, having access to be able to go all the way up to Door County. So, I mean, that's a big deal to me. I paid I'm pretty sure that if this was being planned and blocking access to all these high dollar homes along the Fox River and up along Wrightstown, that they would not even consider blocking their access to the river. It's, so that's my position.
Thanks.
So I'm new. I've lived here for about 4 years and I've lived close to Brett. I have a 3-year-old and a 4-year-old. And the main reason I bought this house was because of the boating access. I want to be able to take my boys fishing. I wanted them to take the boat out, go up to Door County, do all that. Number one, I'm behind what Brett said 100%. I think it impacts all of us that are on the water. And I don't think it's, you need to have it at a higher than 5 feet or 6 feet. I mean, it would have to be a predominantly higher to get boat access through. And like Brett said, right in that channel, that first one is where you need to go through. So
there's boats that come through here all summer long. There's boats, 2, 3, 4 boats all summer long going up the creek, at least to the bridge, not farther, at the entrance to the park. So there's a lot of boat traffic in there that may not be, known to, just the average person going out here. But I see boats in there all day long, especially like the boat fishermen and just people on their pontoon boats cruising along the river on a lazy Sunday night.
yeah, and like I said, I got young kids. I just bought a boat this year for the first time. I've been excited about it. This comes up, and this is shutting down everything that I thought when I bought the property. So I'm going to say that, and I'll leave it for somebody else to have questions.
So what kind of clearance would you be looking for your boat?
I would say at least 10 feet.
Okay.
I mean, I may have, it depends, what boat you have, right? Like Brett, I know you got a bigger boat, but I bought my first boat. It was a smaller boat, but I'm going to upgrade when my kids upgrade and get bigger, right? I mean, so you get a larger boat, you're going to want to have that clearance.
And it doesn't, I even had aspirations about possibly buying a float plane. So I can't have anything across there really. I mean, doesn't apply to anyone else here, but still, there was nothing there, and now they're planning on blocking.
Oh, and you think about it too, what about resale value, right? If we were to sell our home, now we don't have boat access. So you look at that too, you're hurting every home there that is along the line. I like Brett's idea of moving it up. There is a pathway right up front, and you'd save a ton of money, and you could upgrade the park. And the park does need upgrades, and we all know that. Ashwaubenon could use a better playground. They could use, there's many other things that they could be done. So that's where I stand. I don't mind. It's a great idea, but it hurts the people that live here.
Hi, my name is Mike Hawkers, and I've spent my entire life on the creek. First of all, there cannot be a bridge. I want to clarify, crossing the bridge and you follow the river trail around and I assume to the south. And once it hits the south end of the park, where does it go to?
At this time, we've met with New Water on multiple occasions, and we'd be putting the trail behind the New Water facility into the Brown County Fairgrounds. And Brown County Ed and Rec Committee are looking, they'd like to try and make that connection probably within the next 5 years with their master plan.
I'm sorry, the Brown County Fairgrounds connection to where? From once it hits the fairgrounds, where does it go?
It'll go, the thought is it will go to the Petoskey boat launch, which they have, which is actually the city of De Pere, and then come up to the ice center and then connect to for this phase anyway, and then connect to the bike lanes and the sidewalk that are on Broadway.
So essentially it circles and it deadheads back on Broadway. It's not a river trail that continues all the way down past the fairgrounds. It doesn't follow through all the residential.
I cannot, Mike, I can't say what the city of De Pere is going to want to do with it. This is all because I'm the Ashwaubomay Park and Rec guy. So De Pere is well aware of what we want to do with this trail, and you know, we've met with New Water, with Tom Sigmund, and
New Water is the water treatment plant?
correct,
That's
right?
on the,
Yep. The Green Bay Met basically, Metropolitan Sewage District. They changed their name about 2 or 3 years ago to New Water. Makes it sound better, I guess.
you know, when they're talking about boats, my boat that's been at my dock on the creek is a 38-foot Chris Craft Roamer. It needs 14 feet of clearance from high water. It's 13.6 wide. It's been on the creek. Before that one, my dad's boat was behind his house in there. This is not possible. The bridge doesn't belong there. It doesn't add anything in terms of you cross the river and you circle right back up to Broadway a little bit to the south. Just doesn't make sense. The bridge can't happen. It changes everything for us. You know, when Danny Hawkers put his house up for sale, Robin lives in that house. He advertised the house and said, you can go anywhere in the world from the back of your yard. That's always been our mantra, whether it's Door County, whether it's an open council that we went out to Longtail, whether it was the 26'8" that I had back there with the diesel that I'd run to Door County, Escanaba, right from my backyard. You guys don't have the right to change that, to put a bridge across the opening of the creek for pedestrian traffic, and changes the world for us living, spent our lives on that creek. Can't happen. Won't happen. I don't know where this dream came from, but it's just not feasible. You can't affect our lives like you're intending to. Changes everything for us. Thank you. By the way, I've got pictures of the actual boats. This one's in a warehouse at the brickyard that belongs back there. If you guys would like to see what they look like and the potential of how we've been able to use that. It would have been back there this year if it wasn't for COVID. In fact, there's one here leaving the brickyard. Parliament, I had a Parliament run down Dad's driveway, now Brad's, and he would pick this 38-footer, only weighs 18,000 pounds, all aluminum. He'd pick it up off the trailer, he'd swing it around, and drop it right back in the creek. So this stuff is in there. It's not, oh, we'd like to do this. We've been doing it.
Okay. Thanks, Mike. I'll take a look at the pictures after the meeting. All right, other thoughts and comments. There's other people here. Just like to hear what everyone has to say.
Chris Carmody. I live right on the corner here, so this is our view to the river. We have a smaller boat, but again, we have the same concerns of everyone else, of the height, the clearance, and all that stuff. But for us as well, I'm kind of concerned about lighting. How bright is that bridge going to be at night? I know for safety reasons, obviously it needs to be lit, but is it going to be like shining everywhere, or is it just, I guess that's just a kind of a comment for me. But I would like to reiterate with everyone else that the clearance is a concern as well.
Okay. Thank you.
I just want to add, it was bad enough when you cut down a lot of the trees back in Ashwaubomay and opened that up behind for our backyard. Like I said, I have young kids. Now I see people back there all the time. So I worry about my children. It's bad enough you're doing that. Now that you're adding the bridge, again, like Mike said, it's affecting all of our livelihood. This isn't a joke. This is something that will affect us, and we are against it, and it should not happen.
Well, I think just as a recap on the trees, so everyone knows, the trees were going to die regardless of whether or not we cut them down. The only ones that were cut down were all of the ash trees, and it puts a knot in my stomach to have to do it. In fact, we're going to be doing it throughout the whole village starting next year, having to bond quite a bit of money to cut regular street trees down in front of people's homes, because the emerald ash borer is throughout the whole village. And once it takes effect in an area, and it's already been found in Ashwaubomay Park, there were signs of several trees already that have it. And if one have it, they all are going to be getting it. So the ones that were taken down are actually being used up the river for fish spawning areas through a couple of Forest Service grants that the city of Green Bay got. Brennan is taking them down for us at no charge to be able to build those fish cribs as part of their projects up the river at the mouth of Green Bay. So regardless of whether, I know it looks like we took them down, but it's either we're taking them down now at no charge to the village, which is what's happening, or we'd have to be paying hundreds of thousands of dollars to have the rest of them taken down out of your tax dollars. So that's why that's going. And I should say out of the gate, Tim Bucknet, our forester, just in the last couple of weeks, and I'll be honest, I don't know if we'll get to see it in our lifetime. Probably not, at least not my lifetime. But there's been 25 trees planted just on that stretch between the bridge and the point, just in the last 2 weeks. And next year there's going to be another 25, if not 50, because we've got grants to do that. And the plan is to try and reforest that area and put in more brush and try and minimize that. But it's not going to be, there's no way to replace 100-year-old trees, within a year, to make them, block out the noise and the light that we've had in the past. And we felt it was certainly beneficial for the village and for everyone to have Brennan do it as part of this project, because it doesn't cost us anything, and they're restoring the whole area, with all the tracks and ruts that are making for the trees. So it's the whole emerald ash borer thing. It really, if you're a forester or if you're a park and rec guy, it puts a knot in your stomach, because no one likes to see all those trees taken down. And they look healthy, but the thing is, they're not. A lot of times when you shave just that outer layer of bark out, you'll see all the alleyways where it shows the bugs are already there. And they literally, all the ones that were taken down would be gone within 3 or 4 years, because it's already been found in the park, and that's how long it takes for them to die. Yep. All right. Another
question.
Yeah.
For the construction, during the construction, God forbid you guys build this thing, are we going to have access? Or am I going to lose my access for 2 years while they're building this thing?
That's what Patrick, I'll ask you that question, because I know you've done some other projects in the past. How does that work? Would they still have access at some points during the construction?
Well, they would, and again, the time frame, just to give you a time frame for construction, these bridges, and this is about 385 feet long. The ones in Needham and Asha were almost double this length. They were 730 feet and 710 roughly. And we did those bridges in about 4.5 months, start to finish, both of them. They ran concurrently, so it's not a significant time frame. And again, as I indicated, these are going to be built primarily over the winter months. So they would start driving piles. We're actually doing the Fox River Boardwalk right now in Little Chute Kaukauna, and that's on the same time frame. We're just setting girders now, but basically they drive piles in September, October, November, even into December if needed, and then they're putting girders on and decking on over the December, January timeframe, and then the decking is really February, March, and then lighting and railing is basically that March, April timeframe, and then we're open. So it's really a winter month construction. So, you know, unless you're out there when there's ice, you know, but even during construction, obviously, once the girders are on, this, whatever clearance it's going to be, the girders are going to provide that clearance. Prior to that, they would be out here with barges, typically doing some of the work, potentially a parallel bridge, but they're always going to be leaving a gap in whatever they would put in for construction. If it's barges, obviously they would be only using those where they're working, and then they would have to anchor those on the bank during the evening of any workday. So yes, there would be access at all times, but again, this is a winter construction, about 4.5 month time frame is what we anticipate, maybe 5 on the outset, and during the winter when there's ice and other things going on.
All right, thank you.
So I guess my question is, you've heard the feedback. To me, and I think everybody else in this room, we'd like to see other options. We'd be open for some type of trail. I think that's a great idea, but losing access to all of our homes is not the right option. We'd like to see other options. So what are the next steps? Are you taking our feedback, and where do we go from here?
Well, I can't speak for, I guess I have enough knowledge to tell you exactly where we're going to go with it, because we haven't vetted it out yet. And this is the first step in that. Obviously, with the feedback everyone's been given, Grafe will take a look at what potential height they can come up with, you know, on a bridge. And then I'm going to guess, and maybe Mary, you can help me out with this. You can certainly go back to Village Board or one of the other committees, and with some of these concerns brought forward, and it could be vetted a little bit more. But at this point, I think from the concerns, I will need to work with Patrick and Grafe on exactly how high we can get that and not kill the project. Basically, but still allow for boat access. And I don't know where that is right now. That needs to be done, you know, engineers need to do that, and I'm not an engineer. But we would certainly notify everybody about where we are in the process, what options there are, and then if there needs to be additional meetings, then those would be scheduled for more feedback. Allison or Mary, would you want a microphone, or are you guys good? Or do you have any questions, or vice versa?
Well, you know, after hearing the concerns tonight, you know, like Rex said, we'll take it back to Grafe, see how high we can make the bridge. The height of the bridge, the problem is where the bridge lands, and that's the problem. So we'll see if there's any wiggle room within that, where we can go with that. I don't know. Like Rex said, I'm not an engineer either, but you know, it would, I'm sure, go back with the concerns to committee at least, and have, you know, some more neighborhood meetings and come up with other options. I don't know what those options would be.
Rex, can I just make one quick comment just to add on to that? As I'm sure everybody understands, if the bridge is higher or we have to make it longer, there's going to be cost increases to what our budget was under the current scenario. So that's obviously an offshoot of any of the things that would require us to make the structure more substantial. So just that's another driver of the decision-making process.
Yep.
And just to point out, if the bridge is not built, nobody's harmed, because all they do is wrap the walkway up to the sidewalk that exists, and you walk for a quarter mile and you're back into the park. There's no one's going to even know, oh, why isn't there a bridge here? I'm so hurt. But there's a ton of us and even hundreds of people not here who use this creek on a daily basis who are going to be harmed irreparably by having a bridge there. It seems like it's an unwarranted use of money that could be spent better elsewhere. And you're killing us on the creek.
I mean, you could expand the street or the sidewalk and have it long enough for somebody to walk down and make that. I mean, that is an easy thing. It's cheap. They want to drive up the cost just to raise it. If you raise the bridge, that affects, if you don't raise the bridge, it affects all of us. If you raise it, it's going to drive up the price. You don't want to do that. I mean, there are plenty of other options that you have to look into.
The height requirement is just untenable. Yeah, the height required by those of us who are already on the river with our boats is just untenable. There's no way you can build a 15 or 10, 12, 15-foot clearance here like is on, crosses the Fox. That's what we need. The height that crosses the Fox on what's the main bridge? Not Webster, but the main bridge crossings downtown. That's the height we need. It's as simple as that.
At the end of the day, the bridge just doesn't make sense. The net, by being able to cross the creek, run around the park and literally end up at the entrance of the park, doesn't make sense. The bridge doesn't make sense. It doesn't complete an overall project. The bridge doesn't make sense. There should be no bridge. Thank you.
All right, any other thoughts or concerns, comments? Patrick, anything on your end?
Nope, I have nothing more to add right now.
All right. If there isn't anything more, I guess staff will reconvene over the course of the next couple of weeks and take a look at what we can do and what options are out there. So based on some of the comments and concerns. I will say, and I've got to say it because I'm a park and rec guy, and Mike, you and I have had some good conversations before on different things. Your comments are all appreciated. The bridge, to me, does make sense. I think a lot of people, with the housing that's going up along the waterfront, with the neighborhoods that we have down by the Railroad Museum, the Fort Howard School neighborhoods, the Manso Flats, the businesses that are being built up there, that whole waterfront is being developed. And people want to be by the water. That's why the Fox River Trail is as busy and well used and loved as it is. It's because it's on the water. And I think a lot of people, in my opinion, would be very excited to use a bridge to walk across that water and to bring their kids and to be able to bring their kids across the water, or for people exercising when they get done with work, for the seniors who get up early in the morning and do their early morning walks. There's all kinds of housing that is being built right now and will continue to be built on that stretch. And that was kind of the impetus for the village's vision of that whole waterfront trail. There's plenty of sidewalks on all the roadways. Yes, we can use that. That is an option. But how many unique places have a waterfront trail like that? You've got one on the east side of the river, and a lot of people are looking, and we're very encouraged when we have been bringing this forward is in the idea phase about having something on the west side. Now, it's not as long as the Fox River Trail, not by any means, but it would be an awesome amenity for the community as a whole, and especially a lot of the folks that are building homes on the waterfront that currently live in the neighborhoods, to this, by Fort Howard School and by the Railroad Museum, even for the folks that are in the De Pere area, that would be walking to the north. I think it would be a much appreciated and loved feature. So again, opposing view from what you have. I get what you're saying, but I think it would be well used and much appreciated by a lot of folks. Absolutely, that's what we're here for.
Rex, I understand what you're saying, but it goes nowhere. You build the bridge, you enter into the park, and that's where it dead ends. It dead ends at the other entrance. You already have a bridge at the entrance to the park. I don't think that adding this bridge for the unbelievable community you guys are building, it gives you access to the park. But you have access to the park and you have a bridge. And look at what you're doing to us to provide that. It's a little small box that you end up in. It isn't like I love the East Side River Trail. Ride my bike to De Pere and all the way up to Mason Street, and it's just phenomenal. Going behind the park over there, it's not the same thing. That isn't what you're providing here. It doesn't go anywhere. Great entrance to the park, and the park you guys are just continuing to improve, and it's really a showcase piece for Ashwaubomay. Well done. But the bridge doesn't make sense. It doesn't give you for the bang for the buck. If you look at it, we can cross the river. Here we are. Where do we go from here? It isn't like you can run south. Even get past the water treatment plant. All you can do is curve back up and come into the park. Doesn't add up. Doesn't make sense. Doesn't give you enough to be able to put in that walkway into the park. Not for what you're going to ask us. It's the battle has just begun. By the way, property values, access. This is, we cannot allow this bridge to happen. We can't. And you need to hear that from us up front. Oh, and I hate being the guy to say it.
Sorry. You're not alone.
Yeah, you're not alone. Yeah, I'll just, Mike, I'm with Mike 100%. Like I said, I have 2 young boys, and that I purchased this house because I have water access. Now you're taking it away. And that's really what you're doing. You may be thinking about that new property out there, and that's great. That's great that they're building it. But what about the people that have lived here? What about the people that have lived here for a long time? His family grew up here. And now you're just taking that away by putting this bridge up. It's not fair. It drives our value down. It's just not right. And there are other options. There are way better options. And like Mike said, it's a short little, that street, it's right there to get to the park. All you're doing is adding a bridge for that one little area. That's it. For that new community, the new people that are buying new houses. What about us? It does nothing for us but hurt us.
Any other thoughts or comments before we wrap tonight's meeting up? All right. I thank everyone for coming tonight, and thank you for being vocal and stating what you think. Patrick, thanks for being online with us.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm we'll obviously be talking, and we'll do our best to explore, options that we can come up with.
Very good.
Thank you, Rex. Thanks, everybody.
This conference will now be recorded.